WION. World is One.
Good morning, Asia. Good evening, America. You're watching World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar.
And I'm Hem Kaur Saroya. And on the show today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has landed in Washington, D.C. for talks with US President Donald Trump. The two leaders are expected to hold talks on tariff cuts, trade and recent deportation of Indians from the United States. We'll get you the latest on this on the show today.
And also on World DNA, U.S. President Donald Trump has predicted that a ceasefire in Ukraine is not too distant, adding that the country needs fresh elections at some point. And this also comes as Trump revealed that he is expected to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Saudi Arabia for Ukraine peace talks. We'll bring you all the latest on that front, but first the headlines.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in the United States for a two-day visit. He is to meet US President Donald Trump and discuss issues like defense, trade and tariffs.
Members of Indian diaspora chant Bharat Mata Ki Jai as Prime Minister Modi arrives at the Blair House, the US President's guest house. The Indian Prime Minister expresses gratitude for the warm reception in the winter chill.
Trump predicts a ceasefire between Moscow and Kyiv in the not-too-distant future after holding separate phone calls with Ukraine's Zelensky and Russia's Putin, says both expressed a desire for peace.
Israel threatens to implement Trump's plan to displace Palestinians from Gaza Strip if Hamas does not release hostages this weekend.
Former U.S. Representative Tulsi Gabbard sworn in as Director of National Intelligence hours after Senate's 52-48 confirmation.
The U.S. judge lifts pause on federal worker buyout offer under which Trump is encouraging government employees to resign but be paid through September.
U.S. consumer morale falls to a 7-month low in February while inflation forecasts skyrocket. This comes on fears that it is already too late to prevent the negative consequences on their purchasing power from President Trump's tariffs.
Bayern Munich sinks Celtic 2-1 to seize control of their playoff tie in the Champions League. Michael Olise and Harry Kane scored either side of halftime to give the German side a win in Scotland. And Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has landed in Washington for talks with U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House.
The two leaders are expected to hold talks on tariff cuts, trade, and recent deportation of Indians from the United States. The Trump administration has complained that India has high tariffs that lock out US imports. Apart from tariff cuts, Prime Minister Modi is expected to propose increased energy and defense imports during his two-day visit.
Now, shortly after landing in Washington, D.C., Prime Minister Modi met with newly appointed Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. This signals the Trump administration's strategic focus on strengthening U.S.-India intelligence ties.
Members of the Indian diaspora chanted Bharat Mata Ki Jai and Modi as Prime Minister Modi arrived at the Blair House, the U.S. President's guest house. The Indian Prime Minister expressed gratitude for the warm reception in the winter chill.
Now, Donald Trump is in the fourth week of his presidency, and officials say this is the earliest in an American president's term that an Indian prime minister has visited him.
The Prime Minister's visit to the United States also comes in the wake of the recent deportation of Indian detainees that has sparked concerns in New Delhi. The two leaders have built a rapport over the years, which was built by back-to-back visits to each other's countries.
Prime Minister Modi's trip to the U.S. comes after his visit to France that ended on Wednesday. During his visit, Prime Minister Modi inaugurated an Indian consulate in Marseille City and addressed the Franco-Indian Economic Forum in Paris along with French President Emmanuel Macron.
And for more on this, we're now being joined by Mr. Gaurav Sansanwal from Washington, D.C. He is a fellow for the India Chair at the Center for Strategic and International Studies and deals with U.S.-India energy partnership and commercial policy. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA this morning.
Thanks, Jyotsna. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me here.
Now, sir, I want to begin by asking you, of course, we've seen great bonhomie between the two leaders, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Donald Trump. How do you think the India-US partnership will evolve under Trump 2.0?
No, I think, as you rightly said, diplomacy is as much about chemistry as it is about mathematics. And so, we are all looking forward to seeing how the partnership evolves in what you rightly described as, 2.0 of the Trump-Modi era of this partnership. So I think really looking at it, trade is top of the agenda. And when we think of the trade and commercial ties between the two countries, it's important to remember India is on the trade surplus is in India's favor. So which essentially means that India is selling more to the US than it is buying. And, President Trump, who feels that he's been elected with the mandate to reduce the trade deficit, and it's an issue that he deeply cares about, is obviously looking to sell more to India. And so we may see, what may be described as some quick wins in the energy and defense sector. Particularly nuclear energy and LNG exports from the US are high on the agenda there. But, having said that, this is also an opportunity from the Indian vantage point, to manage the relationship early on. And that, is about a talent. Obviously, skilled Indian talent is critical to, shoring up manufacturing in the US, which is again high on President Trump's agenda. And so India is going to try and position itself as the provider of that talent and is going to look to continue that. And then secondly, it's also about technology. And India is going to look to continue the momentum it's developed in attracting semiconductor investments from the US. Amongst a host of other sectors. So trade, technology, talent, managing differences, but at the same point of time, building the relationship forward. I think that's how the two leaders would be looking at it. Yeah.
Of course, and also, as my colleague just mentioned, and you also described the bilateral ties. But that being said, do you think there's a potential point of friction that can be maybe crossed over? We know the immigrants issue is, of course, there. You talked about the Indian talent that is used in America. Do you think there is any point of friction that can arise and that could be overcome between the two nations?
Well, yes, of course. Tariffs is, going back to Trump 1.0 administration, There was a medium intensity trade war in some ways because you had America increasing tariffs and then India responding as well. And once again, now we've seen obviously tariff imposition on steel and aluminum, and aluminum especially impacts India. So there is that relationship to manage. And obviously, the US has also complained about, India's relatively high level of general tariffs, which in the previous administration, as you may remember, Harley-Davidson issue was pretty sensitive. So I think in terms of the difference of opinion, yeah, I think India's high tariffs and reducing that is going to be one leverage that President Trump would look to exercise in the meeting. But India is going to hope that, when we think about the geopolitical competition between the US and China, India sees itself as a provider, as a partner that can provide a lot to the bilateral relationship. And I think there is going to be hopefully some recognition of the fact that, when we talk about friend-shoring and near-shoring, those are aspects that, to what extent those aspects can help India, would remain to be seen. So yeah, you rightly said the immigration issue is sensitive, but the tariff issue is also there. But these are leverages that President Trump will look to use, and India will, on the other hand, look to see if it can get more
Right.
technology, and it can get more from President Trump on other issues. Yeah.
Right, and of course, we'll be looking forward to all that and how that plays out when Mr. Narendra Modi he meets and talks with Donald Trump. But thank you so much, Mr. Gaurav Sansanwal, for coming on the show and giving your perspective.
Yeah. No, it was a delight. Thank you.
All right, Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democratic Congresswoman and a military veteran, was sworn in Wednesday as Director of National Intelligence under President Donald Trump's administration.
And this comes after a confirmation which was passed by the Senate and a narrow 50-48 vote. The confirmation came after initial Republican skepticism gave way to party unity, except for Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, who cast the lone GOP vote against her. The Trump administration has stood by her nomination as part of its broader efforts to reshape the intelligence community. Already, intelligence agencies like the CIA have seen buyout offers for staffers, while lawmakers and security experts are questioning the growing influence of Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency in handling intelligence databases.
Gabbard's confirmation signals a major shift in intelligence leadership, one that will be closely watched as she assumes the role at the time of growing scrutiny over national security and government transparency. In her first remarks after taking oath at the White House, Gabbard echoed Trump's stance on intelligence reform, pledging to refocus the intelligence community.
Unfortunately, the American people have very little trust in the intelligence community, largely because they've seen the weaponization and politicization of an entity that is supposed to be purely focused on ensuring our national security. So I look forward to being able to help fulfill that mandate that the American people delivered to you very clearly in this election, to refocus our intelligence community.
Gabbard's appointment marks an unconventional choice to lead the country's 18 intelligence agencies given her in the past. She previously met with then Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, voiced positions sympathetic to Russia, and supported Edward Snowden. That is a stance that had drawn bipartisan scrutiny in the past. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence was established in response to the intelligence failures leading up to the 9/11 attacks. However, in recent years, Republicans have criticized the office as bloated and overly politicized. Trump himself has long expressed distrust towards intelligence agencies he will now oversee.
Constitution of the United States, that I will support and defend the Constitution.
And well, guess who made a surprise appearance at the White House's Oval Room on Tuesday?
Billionaire Elon Musk stood next to the Resolute desk, took media questions, underscored his influence on the US president. The Department of Government Efficiency that Musk heads has got a big nod from Trump.
Now, the U.S. president's executive order that Trump signed gives the Doge unprecedented power and authority to shrink the workforce. Large-scale staff cuts are given the green signal. Hiring will be limited to only essential positions. Heads of government agencies are instructed to comply.
Now, reacting to the charges of being unelected himself, Musk described federal workers as an unconstitutional branch of government that has more power than any elected representative. He's denied leading a hostile takeover and defended his cost-cutting plans.
What I really want to say is, it's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country, and it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to provide things to its citizens and not simply be servicing vast amounts of debt.
Whom have no government experience have been going through data systems. Many DEI programs have already been shut down.
Now, there's been a strong legal pushback as well. A court issued an emergency order preventing Doge from accessing personal data. The First Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals denied a motion from the Trump administration on overturning release of federal grants.
Now, Trump has warned that judges who rule against Doge efforts would have to be scrutinized.
Does block one of your policies, part of your agenda. Will you abide by that ruling? Will you comply?
Well, I
with that
always
order?
abide by the courts, and then I'll have to appeal it. But then what he's done is he slowed down the momentum, and it gives crooked people more time to cover up the books.
On Truth Social, Trump lashed out alleging massive fraud and waste and abuse uncovered. He pans activists and judges that block his government's road, saying losing momentum will be detrimental to finding the truth. Much left to find, no excuses, he added.
Now, critics of Musk's Doge have pointed to potential conflicts of interest given Musk's many business interests. Democrats have accused Musk of personally benefiting from some of the changes that the Trump administration is trying to push through.
And U.S. President Donald Trump has predicted a ceasefire in Ukraine in the not-too-distant future.
He has added that the country needs a fresh elections at some point. Trump also said that he had spoken to Russian President Vladimir Putin and that the two had agreed to immediately start Ukraine peace talks. Trump will hold a first meeting with Putin in Saudi Arabia, but this extraordinary thaw in relations has sparked concerns that Kiev could be left out of the process.
No, we had a great call, and it lasted for long time, over an hour this morning. I also had with President Zelensky a very good call after that. And I think we're on the way to getting peace. I think President Putin wants peace and President Zelensky wants peace, and I want peace. I just want to see people stop getting killed.
Now, hours after he spoke with the leaders of both Ukraine and Russia, Trump addressed reporters at the White House and said that it would not be practical to grant Ukraine membership to NATO. Remember, this has been a key sticking point for Ukraine in the conflict, and Trump's statement gives a clear indication of Washington's approach.
As Trump pushes for an end to the war, European nations have asserted that any peace deal in Ukraine could not be achieved without the involvement of Kiev and its allies. At a meeting in Paris, the foreign ministers of France, Germany, and Spain insisted that there will be no just and lasting peace in Ukraine without the participation of Europeans, and that no decisions could be taken without Ukraine.
But Zelensky has said that he appreciates Trump's genuine interest in the United States and Ukraine's shared opportunities. Zelensky said in his nightly address that Ukraine believes that America's strength is enough to push Russia and Putin to peace. He said he had a meaningful conversation with Trump and added that the United States and Ukraine also discussed bilateral security and economic cooperation as he met with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
President Trump informed me of what Putin had told him. We believe that America's strength is enough to, together with us, together with all our partners, push Russia and Putin to peace. I also met with U.S. Treasury. Secretary Bessent to prepare an agreement that will strengthen our security and give a new impetus to our economic relations.
All right, moving to West Asia, where Israel is threatening to implement U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to displace Palestinians from the Gaza Strip.
And also, of course, to launch a new war against Hamas if the group does not release hostages this weekend, as agreed on in the ceasefire deal.
The deal has largely halted more than 15 months of fighting and seen Israeli captives released in small groups in exchange for Palestinians in Israeli custody. But the deal, which is currently in its 42-day first phase, has come under increasing strain.
The warring sides, which have yet to agree on the next phase of the truce, have traded accusations of violations, spurring concern that the violence could resume.
The International Committee of the Red Cross, which is facilitating hostage prisoner exchanges between Israel and Hamas under a fragile Gaza truce, called on the parties Wednesday to maintain the ceasefire.
Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz says if fighting resumes, the new Gaza war will not end without the defeat of Hamas and the release of all hostages. He also said that it will allow the realization of U.S. President Trump's vision for Gaza.
Now, this comes as the White House reiterated Trump's belief that it would be more majestic for Palestinians to be moved out of Gaza. Hamas has called for worldwide solidarity marches over the weekend to protest Trump's plan endorsed by Israel. All right, moving on, talks to form Austria's first far-right-led government have failed.
Now, the far-right Freedom Party received a mandate to attempt to form a government last month. Coalition talks between Freedom Party led by Herbert Kick and Conservative People's Party were going on since January.
But disagreements regarding key posts started to come out in open since last week, with Herbert Kickl insisting on both the Interior and Finance Minister posts. People's Party said it wanted to have the Interior Ministry with asylum and migration issues moved into a separate new ministry.
If the talks were successful, Australia could have had a first far-right-led government, but as Austria heads to snap elections, the FPOE stands at more than 35% in voter opinion polls, up from 29% votes it gained in September elections. The People's Party, that came second with 26%, has slumped to 19% and is now trailing in the third place.
Now, despite the far right leading the polls, thousands of demonstrators took to the streets in Vienna to protest last week against the looming possibility of the country's first far right-led government.
A Middle Eastern country which was prohibited from even stepping.
And with that, it's time now to slip into a short break.
But before we go, here's a look at all the climate stories making headlines across the world.
Sudan's military chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan mulls formation of a technocratic wartime government after the recapture of Khartoum is completed. The Sudanese army has in recent weeks regained ground in the capital along several axes. New White House administration and Elon Musk's budget-cutting team abolishing federal programs like the USAID draws anger from Africa, with many who depended on the agency now distraught. And Nigerian artist Sheriff Abdul Rafiu has distinguished himself in the art scene with his unique technique of creating beautiful portraits by cracking glass. That's this week on World of Africa, at these times on WION World is One.
Under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, the world is witnessing a strong, sovereign, and thriving Republic of India.
A historic meeting that could shape the future. Prime Minister Modi is set to hold crucial talks with US President Donald Trump in Washington, D.C.
My family!
Indian PM travels to the US for his first bilateral talks with President Trump since his re-election. Expect high-stakes discussions on defense, deportation and tariff, as India and the US work to strengthen ties. Stay tuned for continuous coverage, only on WION.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast.
On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists,
Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Lots lined up for you on this side of the show as well. Let's get started with the headlines first.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in US for a two-day visit. He is to meet US President Donald Trump and discuss issues like defense, trade, and tariffs.
Members of the Indian diaspora welcome Prime Minister Modi as he arrives in the United States for a two-day visit. The Indian Prime Minister expresses gratitude for the warm reception in the winter chill.
Trump predicts a ceasefire between Moscow and Kiev in the not-too-distant future after holding separate phone calls with Russia's Putin and Ukraine's Zelensky. He condemns the war, which he says should not have happened in the first place.
Israel threatens to implement Trump's plan to displace Palestinians from Gaza Strip if Hamas does not release hostages this weekend.
Former U.S. Representative Tulsi Gabbard sworn in as Director of National Intelligence hours after Senate's 52-48 confirmation.
U.S. judge lifts pause on federal worker buyout offer under which Trump is encouraging government employees to resign but be paid through September.
Companies around the world warn of dire consequences even as they rush to find ways to reduce the impact of universal tariffs. Firms are also trying to adapt to the ever-changing U.S. trade policies that can disrupt diverse sectors.
Bayern Munich sink Celtic 2-1 to seize control of their playoff tie in the Champions League. Michael Olise and Harry Kane scored either side of half-time to give the German side a win in Scotland.
And we start in West Asia. Turkey President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has arrived in Pakistan for a two-day visit on the last leg of a three-nation Asia tour.
Now, this visit signifies a new impetus to strong ties between the Muslim-majority nations. Erdogan was in Jakarta yesterday, where he met his Indonesian counterpart Prabowo Subianto, and the two countries held their first high-level Strategic Cooperation Council summit. The forum was created in Bali in 2022. He proceeded from there to Islamabad.
Pakistan President Erdogan and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif co-chaired the 7th session of the Pakistan-Turkey High-Level Strategic Cooperation Council. Erdogan is accompanied by a high-level delegation including ministers and senior officials as well as corporate leaders. The High-Level Strategic Cooperation Council is the highest-level decision-making forum, providing strategic direction to further strengthening the bilateral relations between the two countries.
Now, Erdogan's visit takes place as Turkey and Pakistan are enhancing their cooperation in various sectors, particularly in defense and counter-terrorism. Recently, Pakistan finalized a deal to purchase Turkish naval vessels, which has further strengthened their defense ties.
In January, the two nations also conducted the naval exercise in the Eastern Mediterranean, highlighting their growing military collaboration.
On Sunday, Erdogan embarked on a 4-day visit covering Malaysia, Indonesia and now Pakistan. And the fast-spreading Guillain-Barré syndrome in the Indian state of Maharashtra has claimed its first victim in the city of Mumbai.
And this brings up the death toll due to the GBS cases to 8, with 7 being reported from Pune earlier.
Now, authorities stated that a 53-year-old person admitted to Mumbai's Nair hospital died from the rare neurological disorder. The Maharashtra Public Health Department said that there are 197 suspected GBS cases in the state, 172 of which are confirmed. The department claimed that while 104 patients have been discharged, 50 are in the intensive care unit, including 20 on the ventilator.
Pune city has emerged as the epicenter of the GBS outbreak in Maharashtra, with 40 cases reported from the Pune Municipal Corporation area and 92 cases from nearby villages. The municipal authorities in the city have shut down 30 private water supply plants in Nanded, Dhari and Singha village, citing contaminated water samples.
Guillain-Barré syndrome, or GBS, it's a rare autoimmune neurological disorder that affects the body's immune response. It can be seen in patients immediately after a bout of infection when the immune system malfunctions and mistakenly attacks the nervous system.
Common GBS symptoms include difficulty in walking, weakness in facial muscles, and problems with coordination and balance. Additional symptoms may include severe weakness in limbs, diarrhea, abdominal pain, fever, nausea, or vomiting.
Medical experts advise early intervention to manage GBS symptoms. Treatment includes intravenous immune globulin therapy, plasma exchange, and respiratory support in severe cases. Additionally, physical therapy and rehabilitation play a vital role in speeding up recovery. The recovery period for GBS patients can vary significantly, ranging from a few weeks to several months or even years, depending on the individual's condition and the severity of the symptoms.
And with barely a fortnight to go before the end of the Mahakumbh in Prayagraj, scores of devotees descended on the city to take a holy dip at the Triveni Sangam on Magh Purnima.
Over 13 million devotees bathed in the holy Sangam yesterday. So far, according to authorities, over 460 million have attended Mahakumbh Mela.
Helicopters showered flowers on pilgrims at the Triveni Sangam on Magh Purnima. Now, the Magh Purnima marks the end of the Magh month, a time for spiritual reflection and purification. During the holy month, devotees observe fasts, offer food and essentials to those in need, and perform prayers and chant Vedic mantras.
As per tradition, devotees perform Kalpas during the Magh month, living on the shores of the sacred river, observing self-restraint and self-introspection for spiritual purification. Overall, a total of 10 million people performed the Kalpas during the Magh month at the Mahakumbh Mela.
Namoni Amavasya saw the highest footfall of devotees as 80 million people took a dip that day. 35 million took in the Amrit Snan or Makar Sankranti, and 25 million devotees on Basant Panchami. With 15 days to go for the Mahakumbh, the last major bathing day will be Mahashivratri on 26th of February.
All right, Valentine's Day is around the corner, and this year the season of love has plenty of surprises from across the world.
Ranging from edible flowers in Paris to heart-shaped cookies in Croatia, and even a trip to a wildlife sanctuary that is offering a unique way to let go of your ex.
Now, in Paris, a florist is giving her flowers a delicious twist. You won't find red roses here, but you can eat the bouquets. The owner handpicks edible flowers like oyster, carnations and lavender, reminding you that they're not just beautiful but flavorful as well.
This one is interesting because it's like a flower candy. It's not the flavor which is the most interesting part, but it's aesthetically pretty, and that's also important in bouquets. Then the sweet williams are small flowers that you can put with everything. It could be quite fun, like in ice cubes. It's really pretty.
And in Miami, custom officials are hard at work inspecting flowers. With over 1 billion cut flowers arriving for Valentine's Day, officers have intercepted over 1,000 pest-infested shipments, handling a crucial job of protecting the U.S. agriculture from invasive species.
In Pennsylvania, a wildlife sanctuary is helping the broken-hearted to move on by feeding their exes to wolves for $5. Visitors at T&D's Cats of the World can throw cookies with their exes' names into the enclosure, combining both the benefits of a fundraiser and hopefully getting closure.
An ex-girlfriend, boyfriend, boss, spouse, roommate. You can, I guess the sky's the limit for an ex. So we'll put your name to that for $5, and then we toss them to the wolves on Valentine's Day.
In Croatia, love is being baked into tradition. The town of Marija Bistrica is famous for likitar cookies, intricately decorated heart-shaped biscuits that symbolize love. Handcrafted for centuries, they're more than just a sweet gesture. They're a piece of history, even recognized by UNESCO.
And a suspension of U.S. foreign aid, including cuts to the U.S. Agency for International Development, could have a severe economic impact on the world's poorest nations.
Now, according to the Center for Global Development, a one-year halt in U.S. assistance would cost 23 countries over 1% of their gross national income. 8 of these nations, South Sudan, Somalia, Afghanistan, and others, can experience economic losses exceeding 3% of their GNI. In these countries, U.S. aid makes up a significant portion of total foreign assistance, with some like Afghanistan and South Sudan relying on the U.S. for as much as 40% of their aid.
Now, the freeze in U.S. foreign aid would be especially devastating for countries already heavily dependent on humanitarian and emergency support. For instance, U.S. provides over 20% of foreign assistance to 8 low-income nations, where the focus is often on crisis response.
These nations face not just economic losses, but risk to vital health programs, emergency relief efforts, and food security. The economic toll would be significant, with South Sudan and Somalia potentially losing up to 9% of their GDP due to the aid cuts.
With the United States stepping back, the international community must step up. Countries like Germany, Canada, Japan, and Sweden are urged to increase their foreign aid commitments to mitigate the effects of the freeze. For some of the world's most vulnerable populations, the U.S. withdrawal from global aid could worsen crises, destabilize fragile economies, and undo years of development progress.
Without immediate intervention from other donor nations, the cost of inaction could be irreversible for millions of people relying on foreign assistance to survive. And President Trump is escalating his trade war strategy with a bold move to impose reciprocal tariffs on countries with higher import duties.
But with complex challenges ahead, including non-tariff barriers and global economic uncertainty, the consequences for businesses worldwide could be far-reaching. Let's break down the key points in our next report for you. Take a look.
President Donald Trump has announced plans to impose new reciprocal tariffs on countries with higher import duties on U.S. goods. This strategy, often described as an eye for an eye, aims to raise U.S. tariffs by matching or exceeding the rates imposed by foreign nations. Analysts suggest this could increase the U.S. average tariff rate by up to 2%, particularly targeting countries like India and Thailand, which apply higher duties on American imports. The move could also affect countries with free trade agreements such as Mexico, Canada, and South Korea, with little impact on their tariff rates due to existing trade deals. One major complication with Trump's plan is the potential inclusion of non-tariff barriers like value-added taxes or VATs into the tariff calculations. This could lead to a 10% rise in effective tariff rate, according to Goldman Sachs. The European Union's high VATs, for instance, may be a key target under this approach. While these measures aim to create fairness in global trade, they introduce complexities, particularly with industries sensitive to tariff increases like apparel, sugar and pickup trucks, where US tariffs are notably higher. Trump's tariff strategy is also about creating economic uncertainty as a negotiation tactic. Experts warn that this uncertainty could weigh heavily on global businesses, complicating investment decisions and trade operations. The US may seek broader geopolitical goals through these tariffs, such as pushing for more favorable trade terms with allies and expanding exports in sectors like liquefied natural gas. However, critics argue that true reciprocity would require the US to lower its own tariffs, as it sits in the middle of the tariff spectrum compared to other industrialized nations. Business Bureau, WION, World is One.
Making our country larger.
Next up, let's take a look at all the developments coming in from the world of technology. Now, amid the ongoing Indian media versus OpenAI copyright battle, the tech giant has now claimed that it does not use any of the Indian media group's content to train its AI model, ChatGPT. According to a 31-page court filing obtained by Reuters, OpenAI maintains it has no obligation to form partnerships with media organizations for the use of their publicly available material. OpenAI is under fire in India due to a major copyright dispute with the country's leading media organizations. More than 5 Indian media organizations have filed a lawsuit against OpenAI, accusing the company of improperly using copyrighted content by scraping and reproducing material from news websites without permission. Meanwhile, OpenAI has said that copyright laws protect only expression, not facts, adding that the Indian lawsuit is jurisdictionally irrelevant.
Riyadh successfully hosted the LEAP 2025 Tech Conference. The event saw cutting-edge technology in the fields of security, AI and robotics on display. LEAP 2025 is a flagship Saudi event amid the nation's goal to become a global and regional tech hub. Visitors at the tech conference were greeted by robots. Also on display was a model of the Black Swan cargo by European drone maker Dronamics. What's interesting is that while the Black Swan might look like a regular aircraft, it's actually unmanned. And that's not all. The company claims the autonomous drone can cover all of Saudi Arabia in 5 hours.
After the major shakeup caused by the Chinese AI model DeepSeek, the world might soon witness the launch of a similar model by UAE. A senior UAE official said that DeepSeek's challenge to American tech giants showed the field was wide open in the race for AI dominance. The oil-rich Gulf monarchy is betting big on transformational technology as part of its push to diversify its economy away from fossil fuels. Currently, UAE has 2 homegrown AI models: Falcon, which was launched in 2023, and Jais, an Arabic language AI chatbot.
And some significant results from the ongoing Qatar Open in Doha now. 3-time defending champion Iga Swiatek is through to the quarterfinals of the Qatar Open, but she had to dig deep against Czech youngster Linda Noskova in Doha. Noskova took the first set in a tie-break, winning it 7-6, but the former world number 1 fought back and took the second set to force a decider. Swiatek led 2-all in the final set, only 2-0, only for Noskova to win 3 straight games for a 3-2 edge, but the Pole responded, winning the 3 of the next 5 games to close out the match 6-7, 6-4, 6-4. The 5-time Grand Slam champion will take on Alina Rybakina in the rematch of last year's final.